This business is not sponsored by or affiliated with the United States Department of Veterans Affairs or your state's Department of Military and Veterans Affairs or any other federally chartered veterans service organization. Other organizations, including but not limited to your state's Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, a local veteran service organization, and other federally chartered veteran service organizations provide this service free of charge. You may qualify for other veterans benefit services outside the scope of what this business offers. All disability claims for increased ratings are processed by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs. This business cannot expedite the processing of your claim by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs.
All right. Welcome. How are you doing, Coach Juan?
I'm doing awesome. Yeah, it's thank you veterans for joining us this Wednesday. Happy to be here, excited, and we got a great Facebook Live, right? Talking about some very important information that we all can use, right? Especially if you're just starting the process, super important. But yeah, I'm glad everybody's joining us, and I'm glad to be doing this class with you, Coach Seabury.
Absolutely. Nice to be here with you today, Coach Juan. And for all the veterans that are joining us today, this week's VA Claims Insider Facebook Live is going to be an amazing way to really approach your VA claim. So we've got some really good information to go over the different types of claim types and pathways. Coach Juan and I are going to break it down in plain English so you understand exactly how service connection works. We'll give you the 5 main pathways to establish it and how you can use these strategies to get the benefits you've earned. So you deserve it. Now, before we do get rolling, let's give folks a minute to hop on. Grab a pen and paper. You're going to want to take notes.
Yep. And while you wait, go ahead and sound off on the comments. Just like, I don't know if I'm saying this name right. Lazirdria, Facio, Bill Newsom, and Michael Ray. All right. Put in there where you're tuning in from, branch of service, what years did you serve, and go ahead and throw in there what coach you're working with. Give a shout out to them.
Yeah, we'd love to see the shout outs, see if any of our veterans tune in as well.
Yeah, you got Michael Ray, Semper Fi from Austin, Texas. We got a lot of Marine Corps coaches, right, as well, and veterans that we work with. But yeah, welcome, Michael. Thank you for joining us.
We've got Wayne Kern, Army, 68 to 71, combat engineer, 100% PNT. Congratulations. Thanks for joining us today.
Yes, Korean DMZ. Thank you for your service, Wayne.
All right. We've got Manuel Salazar. Good afternoon. Army retired from Ohio. Welcome.
And we got Mark from he's U.S. Navy, right? Submarines. Submarines is a hard job being a submariner, right? They don't have time to mess around.
Colleen Flanagan Jackson from Stephen Jackson Army, 1980 to 2004, currently at 50%. Awesome, everyone's coming in.
Giving out a shout out to Coach Todd. He's a great coach. You're lucky to have him.
Helped him go from 30% to 90%, and they're still going at it.
Wow, that's awesome. 30 to 90. That's hard. It's not easy to get there to do that. And we got Roger Hunt, U.S. Army, Vietnam. Mm-hmm. Thank you for your service, Roger.
Thank you. And Randolph Hussman, Air Force. I'm guessing that's 1986 to 94. Thank you for your service. All right, everyone's coming in. Hopefully you guys are ready to get all this information. Got the Hackneys working from Brandon only at 10%. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you learned something that will help you move forward with potentially filing an increase.
Yep, and you got Cecilio, Iraq vet from California. Hey, we got something in common. I'm an Iraq vet from California as well. Fresno, California, and I was in Iraq in 2003, March till March 2003 to 2004 March.
See a shout out to Coach Henry Sosa. Shout out to you, Coach.
Great coach. The only knock on Henry is he's a Yankees fan, but other than that, he's an awesome person.
All right. Thank you all for giving us your shout outs and sharing where you guys are tuning in from. Since we're 5 minutes after the hour, 6 minutes now, let's kind of go into getting started here. Coach Juan, you want to introduce yourself just to get us started?
Yes. So yes, thank you everybody for joining us. My name is Juan Flores. I'm honored to be here with you today. I'm retired U.S. military. Like many of you, I've walked through the road of service and sacrifice, right? Being in the field, deployments, just being in a horrible situation, but then, comes the glory of coming home, right? But I know firsthand how it is and challenging it is to navigate the VA system. That's why I dedicated myself to helping veterans get the benefits they earned. And as a VA claims insider coach, my mission is simple, right? To equip you with knowledge, strategy, and confidence that you need through the VA claims process. I think, like all the coaches here at VACI, we believe in, education is power, right? If you understand the system, you're no longer going to be stuck. You're going to be empowered to win, right? So I've had the privilege of guiding a lot of veterans through these tough claims and then succeeding, right? Getting to their goal, what they want. This is what this job's all about, right? Is helping the veterans win, and that's our number one purpose here. So that's me, and I think we're all excited to know more about Coach Rachel Seabury.
All right. Well, for those that don't know me yet, I'm Rochelle Seabury, and I've had the privilege of serving with VA Claims Insiders for almost 5 years now. In that time, I've met so many incredible veterans like Coach Juan and all of the other veterans we serve and their families. And I've seen firsthand how powerful education can be in transforming lives. This mission, just like Coach Juan said, is deeply personal to us, right? I myself grew up a Navy brat. My dad served 20 years, and today I'm also a proud military spouse. That's why I love being a part of this community, working alongside passionate coaches like Coach Juan and serving our veterans and the community. Together, we get to celebrate your wins, support you through the hard parts, and most importantly, make sure you have the knowledge you need to navigate the VA system with confidence. I'm truly honored to be here with you guys today.
All right. Thank you, Coach Seabury, for that. All right. So, let's get started then. All right. For those, all right, who are brand new to VACI, let's quickly explain what we do. Just so everyone's clear, we are not accredited agents, VSOs, attorneys affiliated with the VA in any way, and we don't file your claims for you or represent you in front of the VA. We are an education-based coaching company. Our mission is to teach disabled veterans how the VA system works, give you proven strategies, and connect you with independent medical professionals so you can build the strongest claim possible. This is what we offer: the one-on-one coaching. That's what I needed when I first started, right? I needed that, coach to tell me, this is, why your claims are getting denied, right? I didn't know that. Submitted my claims and they were getting denied. And I said, okay, well, that's it. End of the road for me, right? So I needed that coach to empower me, give me a good strategy, right? To tell me, look, the claims that you're filing for, you're going it the wrong way, right? This is what the VA is looking for. This is the three elements that the VA needs to approve a claim. And the education material that VACI offers, all the veterans, it's unmatched, right? That's plain and simple. Nobody does it like this company does. The online classes, right, that we have. You're joining us today. We have more classes. We have, classes that educate you, empower you when you start and when you're going through the process and towards the end. And you know, one of my favorite classes is Coffee with the Coaches, and why? The community, right? We have a bunch of vets that have done this, have been there, that have gotten started, that are in the middle of the process. And you know, sometimes we need that motivation, right? We need that veteran that is, you know, in the same situation as you to tell you, hey, I'm going at this, you know, with you. Let's not give up, right? Let's keep going. So if you want to learn more, the best place to start is with a discovery call, right? You can book yours today. Go to vaclaimsinsider.com, or you could sign up with Coach Rochelle or myself directly.
That's right. Thanks for that. I think what brings everyone here today is that education, and that's why these Facebook Lives and these topics are so valuable. So let's get into today's topic, because here's the truth. Understanding how to establish service connection is the single most important thing you can do in this process. Like Coach Juan said, when he signed up to get a one-on-one coaching, it was because he needed someone to explain to him, why was I getting denied? Was it as simple as I filed the claim incorrectly? So think about it. No service connection, no VA benefits, period. Right? You could have a stack of medical records. You could have years of symptoms, but you don't know how to connect it back to your service. The VA won't grant compensation. And this is where so many veterans get frustrated, because maybe you filed before and got denied, like Coach Juan. Maybe you thought your condition spoke for itself. Or maybe you weren't sure what the VA was even looking for. Maybe you're thinking, well, the VA is the one that diagnosed me. They're the one that's treating me. Why aren't they service connecting me? I hear that all the time. That's why education is so powerful, because once you know the pathways, the system starts to make sense, right? The dots start to connect. Here's the good news. There isn't just one way to establish service connection. There are five different pathways that the VA recognizes. Number one, there's direct, when something happened in service and you can link it straight to your condition. Number two, presumptive, when the VA assumes the connection based on where you served or what you were exposed to. Three, secondary, when one service-connected condition leads to another or causes another. Four, aggravation, when service makes a pre-existing condition worse. And then five, the 38 U.S.C. 1151, when a disability is caused by VA treatment itself. Over the next few minutes here, we're going to walk through each of these pathways, what they mean, how they work, and what kind of evidence the VA expects to see. And we'll show you how SEM, strategy, education, and medical evidence fits into each one, so you can approach your claim with clarity and confidence. So let's break these down one by one.
Right. So let's start with the most straightforward pathway, right? Direct service connection. This is when your disability or condition is directly tied to something that happened while you're in the military. Think of it like a straight line, an event, injury, or illness in service that connects directly to what you're dealing with today. Perfect example, a lot of vets have this. I didn't know I had it, it's tinnitus. You know, I remember thinking, why did this claim get approved, but all the other ones denied? Right? My coach told me, well, this is the reason why. This is your job in the military, right? This is what you did. You were around all this loud noise. You know, you had loud noise equipment that you were around with, right? Firearms. So I didn't realize that, but all the other claims got denied. So that's when I told my coach, but my back hurts too, because, you know, I was in a unit where we did have to jump out of planes, where we did have to do the same thing that they did, even though that wasn't my job. He said, put in for it. I didn't know that, right? I put in the wrong way. I didn't have a diagnosis. That was, you know, the secret to that. You know, but here's something important. A lot of veterans hear direct service connection and think, well, I didn't go to sick call every time I was hurt, so I'm out of luck. I thought the same thing. I never went on sick call. I didn't want to be that person carrying their medical records, wearing tennis shoes all day while everybody else is training. All right, but that's not true. While medical records help, there are other ways to support your claim. Or sometimes there's a big gap between when you first complained about something in service and when you were finally diagnosed after the military. So when that gap is too wide, it can make a direct service connection hard to establish, because the VA is going to ask you, what happened in between? Did it get better? Did something else cause it, right? That doesn't mean it's impossible, but it does mean you may need stronger supporting evidence like medical opinions, personal statements, or buddy letters. So to help bridge that gap and support your claim, so yes, direct service connection is the most common pathway, but it can also be the most challenging if there's a big gap between your service complaints and your diagnosis years later. That's why it's important to understand the other pathways because direct isn't the only option.
Exactly. And if it's not direct, that brings us to a second pathway, presumptive service connection. This one's different because instead of you having to prove every single link, the VA presumes, hence the word presumptive, right? The VA presumes the connection in certain situations. Think about conditions tied to Agent Orange or Gulf War exposures or the newer PACT Act illnesses. If your service matches the VA's specific criteria, like certain locations, dates, or exposures, and you have one of the recognized conditions, a diagnosis, all right, let me throw that word out there, the VA presumes it's related to your service. So for example, let's look at Vietnam veterans. Many were exposed to Agent Orange during their service. Years later, some developed like an ischemic heart disease, right? Now, under presumptive rules, the VA has already recognized that Agent Orange exposure is linked to ischemic heart disease. So if a Vietnam veteran served in the qualifying locations and timeframes and is later diagnosed with ischemic heart disease, the VA presumes that condition is connected to service. The only thing needed are the diagnosis and the proof of the service in the qualifying area. The connection has already built into the law for these presumptive conditions, right? But big disclaimer, at the end of the day, it still comes down to what's in your medical records. Medical evidence is what wins claims. So even with a presumptive condition, the stronger your documentation, the stronger your case.
Yeah, and I love the presumptive service conditions, right? It's kind of like let's not make it harder for all the vets, but if you were
Mm,
deployed, right, this is a good way to not have to say, well, I got like for my example, I got out in 2003. I didn't file my claim till 2017, 2018, but
mm,
that was when I was deployed. But I did have allergies even before I, joined the military, right? So I did have those medical records, but they got worse, a lot worse after my deployment. So the presumptives are great. If you've been deployed, these are great claims to file for. They make it a little easier. But yeah, like you said, you still have to, get your diagnosis, right? Let the
mhm.
VA know I do have that condition. All right. So the third pathway, all right, is a secondary service connection. And this is my second favorite way to get a veteran service connected. This one condition leads to another, right? You already have a primary disability that's service connected, but over time that condition either causes or aggravates a second condition, and that secondary condition can also be recognized by the VA, right? For example, a veteran with service-connected diabetes may later develop peripheral neuropathy or a service-connected knee injury that causes you to change the way you walk, and that altered gait eventually leads to back problems, right? So secondary claims are mostly overlooked pathways, but they can make a huge difference. And I can see how they're overlooked, right? A lot of veterans, and I did it myself. How am I going to prove this condition if,
Mm,
I never had it while I was in the military and I don't have any medical documentation for it, but it has made it worse, right? My tinnitus does keep me awake sometime at night. I am staring at
mm,
the wall at 3 in the morning, right? And I can't go back to bed. So that it's overlooked because, to me, and I think a lot of veterans, there's no way that could be service connected, but the VA says otherwise, right? The VA says you can put in a secondary claim. So
yeah.
understanding this connection could be the difference between a partial rating and the full benefits you may qualify for. The key is medical documentation that shows the link between your primary and your secondary conditions. That's why education about how these conditions interact is so important. So secondary service connection shows how one condition can trigger another over time. But sometimes it's not about a new condition at all. Sometimes it's something you already had before service that got worse because of your service. So key words, right? Trigger and aggravation, not causing it.
That's right. No, I think this next one that we're going to go into is kind of like what you were talking about, your pre-existing, right? And then how it got worse. But as far as the secondary conditions go, you know what I hear a lot whenever I'm having that conversation, trying to connect, you know, my veterans' symptoms to their time in service is they attribute things to age. They always just think, oh, I
Yeah.
thought that was just life. I
Oh
didn't
yeah.
even think about it like that. You're absolutely right. Like, now that I think about it, I do notice that's what's happening to me. And I just thought like, oh, well, you know, I just got to deal with it. And that's kind of how I've learned and I've heard that you guys have been conditioned in the military, right? Just suck it up, keep it moving.
Yep.
So it's hard sometimes to come out of that, especially when someone's asking you to be uncomfortably vulnerable and to talk
Yeah.
about day to day what your difficulties are. But essentially, right, it's important to talk about because what you don't share with the VA, how would they possibly know? How would they be able to know enough to know that you should be service connected and compensated for what you're experiencing? So it's a big
Yep.
eye opener, connecting the dots on those secondary conditions. But you're right, it's one of the most overlooked ones, but definitely a strong pathway, right? Um, that brings us to number 4, the service connection by aggravation. So this applies when you had a condition before you entered the military and your service made it worse beyond its natural progression. That's going to be the key word here that will break down what does it mean to be beyond natural progression, right? So every medical condition has a typical course. It might slowly worsen with age, or it might stay relatively stable. But if your time in service caused that condition to get significantly worse, faster, or in its way, or in ways it normally wouldn't, that's what the VA considers beyond its natural progression. For example, let's say you had mild plantar fasciitis before enlistment. Maybe it flared up once in a while, but it was manageable with rest or basic insoles, right? And you were able to qualify to join the military, right? So you join the military and now you're running in boots, marching for miles with heavy gear and standing long hours on hard surfaces. Instead of staying mild, your condition gets worse. Maybe the pain becomes daily. So, severity and frequency are now taken into effect here. You need medical treatment now, or it limits your ability to perform your duties. So, instead of the basic insoles, now you're needing custom insoles. Now you're being recommended for surgery, or now you've got restrictions. Maybe you're put on light duty, right? That's what the VA means by beyond its natural progression. It didn't just follow the slow expected course, it accelerated or intensified because of military service. And that additional worsening is what can be compensable, right? The VA looks closely, though, at before and after evidence. So, entrance exams, service treatment records, and medical opinions are key to being able to support that your claim was aggravated beyond the natural progression from serve due to your service. You need proof that the condition existed before service and proof that the service made it worse. And then that's how you would connect and file your claim.
Yep. That is yeah, that's the main thing is whenever, especially for this claim, right, that your your condition that you had before you joined the military, and now it's gotten worse is medical evidence, right? You have to make your doctor's appointments to your primary, gather them together, right? Um, but sometimes just because you don't have them doesn't, it shouldn't keep you, right, from filing a claim. Um, like you talked about, Coach Seabury, we are trained, right, to suck it up, to not complain, to keep going. That's what we signed up for, right? We signed up for this job. We didn't sign up to, be in a clinic, a doctor's office, every week, right? But you know, for a lot of veterans, right, especially with, filing a claim, sometimes the medical evidence that you have now is more important than the evidence when you were in the military, right? So, key point, make your doctor's appointments, even if you don't like it. I'm pretty sure everybody hates it. They don't like going to the doctor or the dentist. But for VA claims purposes, it could be the difference between, you getting your claim approved or denied. So the last one, let's talk about the fifth pathway, service connection under 38 U.S.C. 1151. All right, this one's unique because it doesn't come from what happened while you were in service, but from what happened after while you were getting VA care. Right, it applies when a veteran suffers an additional disability or even death because of VA healthcare, vocational rehab, or compensated work therapy. So I'll give you an example, surgical complication, right, during VA treatment that leads to a new disability. These claims can be tough, but they exist for a reason. Always request your full VA treatment records, and if needed, get an independent medical opinion to show connection. So let's take a step back. We just walked through 5 main pathways to service connection: direct, presumptive, secondary, aggravation, and 1151. Now, here's the key. Understanding these 5 pathways is great, but it's only half the battle, right? The real question is, which pathways make the most sense for you, and how do you build that evidence to back it up? And that's really what it's all about, right? Empowerment. When you understand the pathways and how evidence works, you're no longer stuck guessing or second guessing. You're equipped to make informed decisions, and that's how you move forward. And that's where the SEM, strategy, education, medical evidence comes in. I tell all my veterans this: if you have a good strategy, right, when you start your VA claims journey, get educated on the claims you want to file for and are filing for, and you have strong medical evidence, you got a good chance of winning your claim. Not guaranteed, right? But you got a good chance. So that's the best you can do, right? When it comes to filing a VA claim, file a fully developed claim with strong medical evidence, and trust me, veterans, you will feel great after you file it because you did all you could.
That's right. So I guess just kind of taking the 5 pathways that, we kind of covered there, how do you figure out which pathway is right for you, right? So that's where the education and the strategy come together, like Coach Juan said. At VA Claims Insider, that SEM method is so that veterans can see the full picture and connect the dots, because you do that at application, you do that at claim build, you do that when you get into your C&P exam, right? Knowing exactly what you filed for and how to articulate it to the C&P examiner. So here's essentially how it works. At VACI with the SEM method, we start with a gap analysis, looking at your medical records and the conditions you've been dealing with, even if you haven't been diagnosed yet. Maybe you're missing something, right? The education comes into play there. Next, we take those conditions and map out how they might connect to your service. We ask the key questions. Is this something that links directly to an event on active duty? Could it fall under presumptive? Is it under the presumptives list? Conditions? Is it secondary to another condition that you might not even connect the dots on? Was it aggravated by service, or does it fit under 1151? Right? We also take it a step further, though. Okay, this is where the Kaluza triangle turns into the golden circle. If you're a VACI elite member, probably familiar with that golden circle. Is it even worth pursuing based on the rating impact? So some conditions, even if service connected, may only result in a 0% or 10%. Others, like migraines or mental health conditions or certain musculoskeletal issues, can move the needle much more, right? So strong strategy means prioritizing the higher value claims that make the biggest difference. And then finally, we look at medical evidence. What records, exams, or medical opinions will the VA expect to see to support that specific connection? I'm going to say this at this point. This isn't a one size fits all process, right? Just because your buddy got connected for an issue who served in the same place, their medical records might be a bit different than yours, right? The gap might be bigger or might be smaller. So you really want to make sure that you're getting that one-on-one coaching so that it's catered to your specific situation, right? When the SEM does the heavy lifting, the strategy points you in the right direction. The education gives you clarity on the rules, and the evidence makes the case. And here's the most important part that we've said over and over again is evidence wins claims, right? With SEM, you're not stuck piecing together service treatment records, buddy statements, or nexus letters on your own. You have a roadmap. And even if your claim gets denied, that's not the end of the road. SEM gives you the tools to regroup, strengthen your evidence, and go at it again. Remember, this process is a marathon, not a sprint, and you don't have to run it alone.
Yep, that's well put, Coach Seabury. And yes, I mean, there's pathways, right? And you brought up a good point. And you could put in a claim, a veteran could put in a claim, and like you said, his battle buddy could put in the same claim, and two different outcomes. And a lot of veterans ask me, why is that? Because that's how the VA system works, right? The VA will send your claim to a C&P examiner, to a doctor. And how many times have you been to different doctors and you've gotten different opinions, different medications, right? It happens a lot. It's not the same, for every doctor. But, if you do submit a strong claim with strong evidence, thank God for HLRs, right? A higher level review appeals. You have appeals and you have a way to appeal your claim. So it's not the end of the road. There's different pathways, and that's how you see vets get their claim approved, 2-3 years later, because they keep appealing and they get some, pretty good back pay. So yeah, I mean, if today's session opened your eyes, don't stop here, right? Take it to the next step in your education. Book a discovery call at go to vaclaimsinsider.com and see how SEM applies to your situation. And if you want even more insight, Brian's book, VA Claims Insider, is available on Amazon. All right, so let's go into the Q&A. That's the foundation, right? 5 different ways to establish your service connection and how the SEM strategy, education, and evidence fits each one. So now we want to hear from you, right? What questions do you have that we can clarify, right? Drop them in the comments. We'll tackle as many as we can. This is your time. If something we covered today wasn't clear, or you just want a better understanding, ask away. This Q&A is all about you walking away with more clarity. And just to be clear, we can't go into personal claim strategies here because that requires a one-on-one review of your records. But if you're looking for general education and clarity, this is a place for it.
All right, so let's pull up in the chat. I know I saw some questions getting dropped in there throughout the live. So let's see. All right, so we've got first question from Bill Newsome. I have a mental health C&P exam coming up, and I don't have a clue how to approach it. My DAV guy hasn't given me any insight to it. Can understand that. I think the big thing on C&P exams, Bill, is this is your opportunity to really identify with the examiner how to service connect, how your condition is impacting you. As far as how you filed it, don't really know all of those details. So this isn't going to be that good of an answer for you because I don't want to lead you in the wrong direction if I don't know how your claim was filed, right? But remember how you filed your claim. If you filed it as direct and you're attributing your mental health to something that happened in service, you're going to have to talk about that. If you're filing your mental health as secondary to a service-connected condition, then that's how you would want to articulate your mental health symptoms, is how it is attributed to that. If you have a coach, get with them and let them know that you have a C&P exam coming up so they can make sure that they, put you in the right direction. But this is the time that you really want to go into the symptoms that you're experiencing and how it is affecting you occupationally and socially. Do you have
Yes.
anything to add to that, Coach Juan?
Yes, I can understand, Bill. I went through the same thing, right? I had went through DAV and the same thing, right? He gave me a card and said, "Call me if you have any questions." Never answer the phone. Now, not all of them are like that, right?
Mm.
A lot of them they mean well, but that's just how the system is, right? The system is like that. So, um, but yeah, I mean, you need to watch as many videos as you can, right,
Yeah.
from VA Claims Insider. That's what I did, right? I watched as many videos as I could on how the VA looks at mental health, CMP
Mm.
exams, and if I typed in on YouTube VA Claims Insider mental health, and I got a ton of videos that popped up. Like I mentioned earlier, this
Mhm.
company has a ton of resources. So and prepare yourself, right? Just get ready for it. Um, this is a big moment, right, in the claims process.
Yeah.
The VA puts a lot of weight on what these CMP examiners, their opinions are. All
We got
right.
let's see. We have a shout out. So Jerome Maxwell says, "You all took me from 30% to 100%. You took you from 30% to 100%. Congratulations on reaching your 100% rating."
Yeah, congratulations. That's an amazing feat. I'm at 100% as well. I'm 100% P&T, and before I joined DACI, I thought that was impossible. I just wanted to get 30% so I could add my dependents, right, to my compensation. But getting to 100, life changing, right? So congratulations. That's an awesome feat.
That's right. All right. You see any other questions? Let's see.
There's a good one from Echo Ranger. Get a lot of these questions, and it has a lot to do with what we just talked about. Says his question is, "Hello, I noticed in my C file that when my claims file that when I was in service, I went to sick call for knee pain. I'm not service connected SC, but for it, but now bothering me really bad. Would this be connected on a direct basis?" Yes, it would be basically directly linked, right, to the military. Um, and what we just talked about, you definitely want to fill in that gap. Get as much medical
Mm.
evidence as you can in between. If you don't have that, you definitely want to look into personal statements, witness statements, somebody that was there with you, or even, and getting current medical records, right? That's really going to help you. But yes, I would definitely look into filing a claim. It was caused in the military. And it's still bothering you now, right? It never went away. Or some days it was worse than others. But, the bottom line, like Coach Seabury says, we're not getting any younger. So more than likely it could be it's going to get worse. So, yeah, definitely look into that. Definitely look into filing that claim.
All right. So we've got a question from Richard Franks. He said, "Initially injured my knee in Nam, jumping off a 5-ton, has gotten progressively worse. Difficulty with stairs, carrying weight, slight limp now, other knee, no prob." Question. So I guess just coming from what Coach Juan and I spoke about today, what type of claim is this? And what pathway would you be filing this for? And what would it take? Um, well, if the initial injury happened in service and it's documented in service and it's something that's continued to worsen today, then you're claiming your current injury, just from what I have here, is due to direct to service, right? Something that initially happened in service. But as we mentioned in our presentation today, that is going to take that medical supportive evidence, right? If it was or was not documented in service, you might have to get a little creative on proving that injury or incident happened in service, and then connecting the dots to today, right? If you've got a current condition, since it's gotten worse in time, did you receive continuity of care since that initial injury in service up until today? Or how would you be able to fill in that gap from initial injury to now? Right. So again, because this isn't a one size fits all process, it is about kind of doing a gap analysis on what do you have in your records and what don't you have in your records. So what are you going to need in order to make that direct connection? If there's nothing else that you are linking that your knee injury was caused by, right, then it would be direct.
Yes, and like we've been talking about today is medical evidence wins claims, right? Go to the doctor, right? Make your doctor's appointments.
Mm.
And this is a question too that a lot of veterans ask me. They say, "Well, what am I going to talk about, right, when I go to the doctor,
Mm.
right? I already have my physical." And I tell them, well, for the VA claims process, um, that's what the VA wants to see. They want to see treatment. They want to see that this condition is still bothering you. They want to know that it's still affecting you, that it hasn't gotten better. So for VA claims purposes, when you talk to your doctor, it's kind of like when you take your car. You want to let the mechanic know exactly everything's wrong with the car, right, to get it fixed. You have to do the same thing, right?
Mm.
If your knee's bothering you, if you have pain, if you have to, stay home on the weekend sometimes because your knee's bothering you, if you gain weight because of your knee, if your foot hurts right now, if your back hurts, if you have nerve pain, you want to talk about everything when it comes to your, um, when you go see your doctor. So look into that, right? Look into going to your primary doctor, talk about everything that's wrong with you, and don't hold back, right? When I went through my claims process, I think my doctor had to kick me out of there, my primary, because I never did. I never talked. I always said, "Oh, everything's okay. I just have allergies, but everything other than that, I'm fine." But I learned that I can't do that, right? I'm only hurting myself. So I definitely opened up and told the doctor, "This is everything that's wrong with me." And I said to myself, "I'm not in the military anymore, right? I can open up and I can talk about things that are wrong with me." So like I said earlier, your medical evidence wins claims, and if you're going through a claims process, the medical evidence right now, a lot of times will be more important than treatment records from the military.
That's right. All right. Let's see. What other questions? I know Rosa Diaz, I saw you drop your email address in there. I think the fastest way is use that link on a discovery call to get signed up, right? We'll drop it again on the screen here so that you can, or in the chat so that you can get signed up, because it sounds like you want to get in contact with someone so you can schedule a time that works best for you. There it is right there to schedule a call.
And then we got a question right from Lisa De
Mm.
Leon. She says, "I've heard that going from 90% to 100 is the hardest. Why is it?" Great question, right? The VA math,
Yeah.
right? That's basically the answer. Is the VA math. So the VA math, they do their calculations on your rating a lot different than what most of us think, right? 80 plus 20 does not equal 100 to the
Mm.
VA. And if you go to if you type in VA Claims Insider calculator, you'll see the calculator on, how confusing that is. But that calculator makes it, a lot simpler, because you could just type in all the ratings that you have, what you're rated at, and then you'll get a total score, right, of your VA rating. The VA rounds up and rounds down, so you could be at 82% or you could be at 85%. So that's the
Mm.
difference between 80% and 90. Okay, but
Mm-hmm.
yes, getting to 100% is not easy. Once you're at 85%, you think that, okay, I just need a 10% and I'm there. No, you need, well, yeah, you need to look at what you have and do some work. But that's what we do, right? We get a lot of vets like that are, stuck, and they say, "Hey, how can you help me out?" And we give them that pathway.
I think a little emphasis on the VA math is knowing what your true VA math actually sits at. Like you said, are you a
Mhm.
90% at 85, rounded up to 90, or are you at 94%, just 10, like 1% away from 95 to be rounded up to 100, right? I think
Huge difference.
the huge difference.
Yeah,
And I think the
yeah.
calculation, once you get to 90%, every 10% is 1 point. 1 point. So that's why it's so hard. And I think the easiest way I can explain VA math, because I think VA math is a big factor into your understanding and frustration in this process. So let's kind of address that, because I hear what you're saying there, Lisa. You would think that someone with a 50 plus 50 equals 100, but VA math, 50 plus 50 actually equals 75, which rounds up to an 80% compensation. So if anyone out there has two 50% ratings and you're just like grabbing your head and brain trying to understand how the heck am I only at 80%, how it works is the the VA math chips away at what is left on your percentage scale, not disabled. So if you're at 90%, let's just say true 90, your 10% of you is left not disabled. So any rating that you get comes off of that 10%. So in that example of 250s, that's an easier one because, fractions, it's easier when you're doing 50% pi. If I've got a 50% disability rating, that means 50% of me is disabled and the other 50% of me is not disabled. So if I got another 50% disability rating, that 50% is only going to come off of the 50% left of me that's not disabled. So what's 50% of 50? That's 25. That's why my two 50% ratings added up to 75. And now I've got 25% left of my pie to work on getting to 100. I hope that helped.
Yeah, and it is confusing, right? It's confusing, and I think I get this every day, where
Hmm.
vets say, "Hey, I think the VA made a mistake, right? I got a 30% and a 10, but I'm still at 30 or something like that." Just an
Hmm.
example. But yeah, you definitely, part of being educated, right, on your claims. And you brought up a good point, Coach Seabury. That's part of the process of knowing, what your strategy is going to be when you file your VA claim,
Exactly.
because there could be some claims where you could that's it, that's the ceiling, and you have all these other conditions that you do have, and you're not even looking at them,
Hmm.
right? So I think that was probably the scariest part for me when I started the process, because I said I
Hmm.
would have never looked at them. So, I would have been, where I'm at 10% the rest of my life.
I think it is trusting that process, right? Trusting your coach, right? Because
Yeah,
sometimes you come into the program having an idea or having a claim strategy in mind, like, I want to go for this. I want to go for hypertension. Right? I should be service
yeah,
connected for hypertension. But once you get educated on that strategy, that's in most cases a 0% condition, right?
yeah,
So let's take 5 months on average for a claim to go through the process of claim build to submission to pending CMP to decision. I waited 5 months for a 0% rating. That wasn't a good strategy then, right? So trusting the process, coming in with an open mind and understanding that the coaching that comes with it is meant to be educational for you. It's not just a matter of, oh, whatever I say. I think it has to be based on what are you dealing with, what medical evidence do you need, and then what kind of rating does that condition warrant. So a big part that plays into, of course, the VA math, what actually warrants an increase.
yes, yeah. That was a pretty good question.
Hmm.
All right, so I saw one here. Okay, Kathy Terry, right? She says, "If I want to pursue working on a claim using your company, can you tell me about the process and what the cost is?" All right, so how I started, the process, I signed up, right? Went to VA Claims Insider, signed up, sent my information. Then I received a phone call, welcome call from my coach, explained to me, we're, coaching consulting company. We're not part of the VA, right? So we don't submit claims for you. And like we talked about, strategy, education, medical evidence, right? the key things that this company provides. And you don't get charged unless you win. Okay, so if you get an increase, right, from where you're at, or if you're at 0, at 10%, that's yours, the percentage that you already have. But wherever the company helps you, whatever we help you increase, um, that's what the company will bill you 6 times the amount, the monthly increase. So for example, $500 monthly increase, it'll be a $3,000 bill that you will get, right? So, 6 times a monthly increase. But like I said, if you don't, win your claim, you don't get charged. But the value, right, that I got from coming here is I won. I got to 100%. So, it was the best money that I've ever spent. Lifelong benefits, right? But yeah, I mean, it was a great move, right? It was a great move that I did, and a lot of veterans tell me this, and I'm pretty sure the company's gonna hate me for saying this, but yeah, a lot of them will say, well, I could have done this on my own, right, and got it, maybe, and maybe not, right? I didn't. I tried it on my own and I couldn't. There's a lot of vets that are like me that they say, hey, this is my last option, right? I don't
Mm,
have any other. After this, I'm done, right? I can't do it anymore. Um,
mhm.
but yeah, I mean, it's for a lot of us, we do need it, right? We do need that coaching, and we do need that time, that one-on-one coaching that in my example, my DAV couldn't give me.
And Kathy, since you're asking that question, I would recommend signing up for a discovery call, right? You have nothing to lose by signing up for a discovery call to get any additional questions that you might have about our program or further clarification on our fees, as it suits you, by signing up for that discovery call. So we hope to see you though. All right, so I see another question from Sanford Swain. It says, I want to file an increase for my hip pain and a secondary for lower back pain. And will I need to file 2 separate forms? So to answer the form question, it's one form. You can file an increase and for a new condition on VA Form 21-526EZ. It's the same form, so you don't need to file 2 separate VA Form 21-526EZ forms, but they will be 2 different claims, right? So you're filing a claim for an increase on your hip, and then you're filing a claim for your lower back secondary to your hip. I'm not quite sure what that secondary, maybe that's what you meant, lower back secondary to your hip pain. And then those would be 2 different conditions, 2 different claims, but your question on the forms, it is one form. All right. What else?
That was a good question on the chat. Okay, here from Alma. Um, she asked, my husband had sleep apnea severe. That's what doctor said, and he's denied. What should we do?
Hmm.
Right. So, like we mentioned earlier, just because you were denied doesn't mean that that's it, right? That's the end of
Mm-hmm.
the road. Um, hard to say, right? Like what, how to appeal this, or to move forward without looking at your decision letter, right? The
Right.
reason which you were denied, because a lot of these decision letters are awesome. I love reading them because the VA will sometimes give you a reason why you were denied. Sometimes it's a mistake that they made, and human error, and we catch it, right? That's what we're there for, to look over your letters to see what's going to help you when you refile it, right? When you put your claim in again. So yeah, I'd have to look at everything that you have or your husband has, to give you a good strategy to appeal it. But yeah, don't quit. Don't quit. Keep putting your claim in. And one important note too on these denials, and this goes for everybody, make sure that you file, right, your appeal before the date on that decision letter for back pay purposes, right? Makes it a lot
Mm-hmm.
easier for back pay. But that doesn't mean that you can't file a claim again. You can file that claim as many times as you want. Don't let anything stop you, right? Keep putting it in. But yeah, strong evidence, I would think off the top of my head, without looking at, your husband's file, is gather strong medical evidence, look at that decision letter, and develop a game plan, right, to get back into refiling the claim, and don't give up on it.
That's right. We're trained on what to look for, right, in a decision letter, because the decision letter, as much as all you really read on it is your claim was denied, there's a lot of words on that letter, and a lot of it actually tells you exactly what is missing when you submitted your claim, right? It'll tell you exactly what part of the VA criteria was not met. What was, it'll show under favorable findings what was met, but then it'll also say what's missing. So that's kind of what you can discuss with a coach specifically, and then where to go about getting that part that's missing to fulfill that service connection. But like Coach Juan says, from the date of that decision letter, there is an appeal time, so that way you don't leave anything on the table. Okay. All right, next question, because we are almost getting to the end. So if we do not get to your question, our apologies. I mean, there's a lot in there and it can get pretty overwhelming on this side of the screen, but someone will get to it, okay? Someone will come back onto the chat. So if you just come back to the Facebook Live once it gets posted, someone will answer your question in the chat. And of course, you can always connect with a discovery call. So let me see if I can pick up one more question here. Dave Crocker, what about having 10% and then returning for an increase and getting the 10% taken away, but told you're service connected? The file pack 38 for what they say and file in records and still denial, but VA confirmed sleep app in 06, but service connected for lung issues in 2020. Okay. That was a lot. I don't really know the question, but let's start from the first piece, right? You filed for an increase and then they ended up reducing your rating, right? So that is the hard part. When you file a claim, you want to know if you meet the criteria for that increase, right? Because anytime you open up a claim for evaluation, there is always a chance that you may be reduced if your medical evidence that you submitted when you filed that increase does not support the increase. Or if you go into a C&P exam and don't articulate the worsening of your symptoms under the VA's criteria, right? So all of that is why education is so important. You don't just throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, right? You want to put together a fully developed claim so that instances like this don't happen. But there's also another situation. If you filed a claim for an increase, you submitted all the supportive evidence, you articulated that your condition has gotten worse to the degree that warrants that increase, but you were reduced, you can appeal, right? There are unwarranted denials, just the same way that there are unwarranted reductions. So putting together the medical evidence is your best bet to get properly rated. The second part of your question, do you get anything from that, Coach Juan?
So the service connection, I'm thinking, right? They reduced him to 0, right? He's still service connected. I don't know, pack 38.
I don't know.
And still denial. Confirmed sleep apnea. Sleep apnea in 2006, but service connected for lung issues. So yeah, I mean, and I think just to answer part of it, if I'm not mistaken, like what you mentioned earlier, Coach Seabury, if you have sleep apnea diagnosis and your sleep study from the VA or from your private doctor or private company, that doesn't mean that you're service connected for sleep apnea, because the VA still wants to know how is this linked to the military, right? That's just one of the elements, right, that you need to approve a claim. Is a current diagnosis, you have that, but you still need the other two, right? Evidence of an in-service event while on active duty or made worse by an already service-related condition. And the third is, what is the link, right, between your diagnosis and two? So, but you're service-connected for lung issues in 2020. So it seems like you got a lot of service connections if the VA is compensating you for it or you have a 0% rating for it. But, that's what I'm getting out of the question.
Okay. Hey, Dave, we'd love to talk with you more. If you can, sign up for a discovery call. It sounds like you've got some things in there to work through and talk through. But that is going to wrap us up for today's live. We covered a lot. the 5 pathways to service connection, how SCM ties into each one, and why evidence is the key to success. If you haven't heard Coach Juan and I say it over and over again. If you take nothing else from today, remember this: education is your strongest weapon, and SCM is the framework that uses it. And the best part is you don't have to navigate this process alone. Having someone by your side makes the path clearer and gives you the confidence to move ahead. Thank you all for spending time with us today. We're so proud to be part of this community and grateful for the chance to share this space with you. A big thank you, Coach Juan, for teaming up with me on today's live. Join us again next week, guys. Stay proactive.
Thank you.